Depression, Dad had many kids. He became a lighthouse keeper like his granddaddy did. They sent him to an island out in Boston Bay, but the babies kept a-coming anyway. We ate lots of lobster, macaroni too, and Mama said, I'm gonna pray that God will provide for our every need each and every day. Oh, Daddy, can I go when it's light out time? Round and round up the stairs we'll climb. Oh, Daddy, can I go with you tonight? I want to go up and help you light that light. I was born in Boston. My father was the lighthouse keeper on Boston Light, and the nearest hospital was up in Boston, so Mother went to Boston, and that's where I was born. But my father and mother are both Maine people, and they wanted to get back to Maine, so finally he came to Ram Island Light in Booth Bay, and we had a place here in South Bristol. That's how I arrived here in 1944, I believe it was. And I've been here ever since and love it.
And so you ended up going to high school here? Or?
Yes, I went to Lincoln Academy, yeah.
Class of?
Class of 49. Yeah, 1949.
And when did you start into fishing?
Oh, I fished, when I was in grammar school. I started fishing, lobster fishing with my father on the lighthouse. Just had a few traps out. And then went clamming when we moved up here to Maine, dug clams. And when I first was married, went into the lobster business, went lobstering for 10 years. Finally got tired of that and went dragging and herring fishing and all other kinds. And so lobstering is the least attractive after you've tried everything else.
Well, in those days, there was good money in dragging?
Yeah, well, actually, the problem with fishing anyway is that the fishermen were forced to catch whole boatloads of fish because the people buying fish always paid such a cheap price that you had to catch a boatload of fish to make a living. And so they blame the fishermen for depleting the stocks of fish everywhere, but really it's the buyer's fault, and they wanted cheap fish, always wanted cheap fish. And no matter what you were catching, if you caught a lot of them, the price always went down half what it was when you started. Oh, really, fishermen are innocent. They did what they had to do to survive, which was to catch boatloads after boatloads of fish.
So was ground fishing the main major source of your income?
Well, of course, the greatest volume of any fish caught in the world, even today I believe it would be the same, is the herring. The herring is caught more than any other fish by the ton. And of course there were a lot of sardine factories in Maine when I started fishing. Now they've mostly all gone, but of course the other fish all feed on herring and everything except scallops and shellfish, eat the herring.
So did you do a lot of stop seining, or?
Yeah, stop seining and purse seining for herring. Yeah, I had my own seining outfit, the last of it. When I had my hot spell, I had to give it up and continued dragging in the winter for shrimping, because you don't have to, not quite so much work in drag fishing as there is herring fishing. A lot of manual labor to it.
Plus the herring, they're not around very much, are they now?
Well, they do catch them year round now. They're outside on George's Bank places in the winter. But the old folks had some sayings. One of the sayings was, all fish come to the shore at some time during the year. That's an old-fashioned saying. All you have to do is wait and they'll come to you sooner or later. And one of the strange things about the shrimp is that they have a very thin shell, and they come and lay their eggs up in the shallow water when the water is the coldest in the wintertime. It's really amazing. You'd think they do it in the summer, but they don't. They come in the winter, and the quality of the shrimp is better when the water is the coldest. They're the biggest and meatiest and best. It's very strange, but that's the way the Lord works. He doesn't do things the way we want him to. He does it the way he wants to. Right.
And the herring fishery though around here, is it pretty much dead, or?
No, there's a lot of herring now, and of course they catch them by different methods now. I think there's a lot of mid-water trawling going on, and they use two boats in a lot of cases and tow a net between them and have it so they can raise it up and down in the water and chase the herring wherever they are. Whereas before we used to wait until the herring came to the shore in the summer, and they'd go up in the coves for some strange reason which nobody really can explain, why the herring come and go up into the shallow coves in the middle of the summer. It's not to spawn, they found that out, but they pile right into the coves in huge numbers. Yep.
And then you just go out with a dory and...
Well, actually you keep your nets, your seines in the dories, and you set a stop seining, as they call it that, because you stop the fish off. You set the net from one shore to the other and capture the fish inside of the net. And then usually the sardine factories send out big boats, and you loaded the big boats. The last of it, they pumped them all with big pumps. And so you actually didn't carry those herring in your own boats. You used the factory boats.
But in the old days, you used to just have to haul the nets and load up your main boat and the dories.
Well, no, they actually, from the time they started sardine fishing, the factories had their own boats. But at the beginning, instead of pumping them, they used a big braille net, they call them, and you hoist them aboard with a dip net at a time. And that worked quite well. There were some good points to the old ways too.
Oh, rowing in your dory on the banks of Newfoundland. Rowing in your dory with a codfish in your hand. Oh, when the time has come to rest, there's one place that I like best. That's rowing in my dory on the banks of Newfoundland. Oh, many a man has left the schooner on the banks of Newfoundland, fishing for cod and pollock with frostbite on their hand. They rowed and sailed their dories through blinding fog and snow. How many men never did return, we'll surely never know. Oh, rowing in your dory on the banks of Newfoundland. Rowing in your dory with a codfish in your hand. Oh, when the time has come to rest, there's one place that I like best. That's rowing in my dory on the banks of Newfoundland. Now they loaded up their dories with shining, thrashing cod. Then they sailed back towards the vessel with a prayer she was there, please God. If they didn't hear the horn and sailed on by, 'twas a night on the freezing sea. No warm bunk in the forecastle, just a dory load of cod by G. Oh, rowing in your dory on the banks of Newfoundland. Rowing in your dory with a codfish time has come to rest, there's one place that I like best. That's rowing in my dory on the banks of Newfoundland. Oh, back home on the mainland, the wives prayed on their pillows every night that the men would dory through it all and everything would turn out right. Then the day finally came when the vessel sailed home in a brilliant nor'wester race. Her decks all awash and loaded with fish, and the dories all nested in place. Oh, rowing in your dory on the banks of Newfoundland. Rowing in your dory with a codfish in your hand. When the time has come to rest, there's one place that I like best. That's rowing in your dory on the banks of Newfoundland. Now, when a man grows old after fishing in the cold, and it's time to say goodbye, it's a pleasure to know Christ loves us so. He's built a sea of glass in the sky. When I reach that destination, I pray that Christ will come along with me in my heavenly dory while the angels sing this song. Row in my heavenly dory on the sea of glass in the sky, visiting the saved who were lost offshore on the banks from the days gone by. Oh, thank you, Jesus, that my name's written down in the wonderful book of love. Not by my fishing or my works, but by grace alone, I'm gonna live with you above. Excuse me.
So did you ever really fish in Newfoundland?
No, never been there. That was taken from an old song that they used to sing in Newfoundland. Rowing in your dory on the banks of Newfoundland. I heard it in Florida from a lady that was a Canadian lady, and I adapted it to a gospel song. You know, there's people in Tennant's Harbor, fishermen in Tennant's Harbor, not many years ago, caught $1 million worth of herring in the summertime. And usually if you're a crew member and you go with somebody, your share is 10% of the gross. And I talked to the man who was with him, and he said that he made $100,000 in 3 or 4 months that year. That was his share, $100,000. Amazing story. That's about the most I ever heard of anybody making.
What about yourself?
Oh no. The most I ever caught was 22,000 bushels down on Damasco Bar in the fall, and I remember, we made a couple $1,000s a piece in 5 days. The time we set until the time we got them out was 5 days, which wasn't too bad, you know.
Were you pretty much by yourself? Did you?
No, when you're herring fishing, you have to have at least 3 men, and 4 is better. Like they say, it made me think of that story they tell about if you're going to go fishing out of Cape Papas, Maine, you've got to have a pickup truck and you ought to have a boat.
And what about some of the local, did you fish with Henry Jones?
Yes, I did. I went with Henry 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Yeah, I learned a lot. Henry was a real smart fisherman. He grew up on Damascove Island, you know, when he was a kid. He lived down there. And he didn't go very high. He only went to, I think, the 7th, 8th grade in school. But when he went herring fishing, boy, he didn't say too much, but his brain was working all the time, and the things that he'd learned over the years were in his head. And there's a lot to herring fishing, setting your seines where you don't rip them up and doing everything right. And Henry was real good at it. Yeah.
He lost some nets once in a while, though, didn't he?
Yeah, when we had our 22,000 bushels at Damascove, he was over on Outer Heron Island, Southern Cove, and he never got a fish out and lost what nets he set there. He kept breezing up all the time we worked there, and finally it got so rough it was impossible to fish. Yeah.
Was it Gladden Schrock used to go out with him?
Yeah, Gladden went with Henry. I think he may have been there then. Of course, Roy Vos, a man named Roy Vos, the Indian man, used to fly Henry's plane for him, spot fish, and Roy was there at the time. Roy told me that they couldn't get the fish out because the guys who were in the crew didn't know how to stand up in the dory and work. that was Roy's description of the case. You know. Okay. When I was about 42 years old, because of problems in my life, I started reading the Bible, searching for answers. So one Sunday while I was in church, when the preacher was baptizing babies, the Holy Spirit from God came to me and I was saved. Now I knew what had happened to me because I'd been reading in the Bible. When I read in John chapter 3 where Jesus said, unless you be born again, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven, I knew what he was talking about. So on the way out the door, I said to the preacher, "Preacher, a wonderful thing happened to me today. I found the Lord while you were baptizing those babies. I got saved." And he said, happens to everybody sooner or later. So since that time, it's been a wonderful experience living with Jesus and for Jesus, and my whole life changed. And whereas before that, I just sang when the people sang in church, now I started singing on my own, praising the Lord, singing songs, and also writing songs. And the Bible promises that anyone who's received Christ will receive his Spirit, and he gives gifts to those he loves. One of the gifts he gave to me is the gift of writing gospel music, and I've been doing it ever since, and I just love it and enjoy it. Now when one you love is sailing, caught in Satan's gale, you try to warn of danger, but sometimes to no avail, for only Christ can reach them when it's spiritual war each day, while helplessly we hold a turn or even slack away. Yes, sometimes we want to snub up that line made fast to the one so dear, but the more secure we tie it, the more strain we cause, I fear. And the hardest thing in this whole life is to keep on paying out slack when every instinct tells us to haul those rascals back. Please haul those rascals back, Lord. All those rascals in, for only you can save them from the ravages of sin. Oh, we can pray all night and all day, but until they pound upon your door, they'll not receive your love and grace, nor reach your peaceful shore. Now I love to go fishing when the ocean's wide white with foam. And if I know my heart is right on with God, there's no fear, however far I roam. By faith we venture forth in life as on a troubled sea. And if anyone has found the Christ, he should sail in victory. Oh, please, all those rascals back, Lord. All those rascals in. For only you can save them from the ravages of sin. Now we can pray all night and all day, but until they pound upon your door, they'll not receive your love and grace, nor reach your peaceful shore. Now you can take the one that you love out on the wild green sea, and you can tell them how it is with you about Christ's victory. But until they have cast out the net themselves and prayed the blessing through, they cannot know the victory that Christ has given you. Oh, please haul those rascals back, Lord. All those rascals in. For only you can save them, Jesus, from the ravages of sin. Now we can pray all night and all day, but until they pound upon your door, they'll not receive your love and grace, nor reach your peaceful shore. Now when your son or your daughter leaves the safety of your arms, they say, I'll do it on my own, Dad. I'll not come to any harm. But straight is the gate and narrow the way, and find it there be few. This is Christ our Savior, and we know his words are true. Oh, please, all those rascals back, Lord. All those rascals in. For only you can save them, Jesus, from the ravages of sin. Now we can pray all night and all day, but until they pound upon your door, they'll not receive your love and grace, nor reach your peaceful shore. No, they'll not receive your love and grace till they pound upon your door.
My father and my brother and I were mistaken for Nazi spies. And we landed right here in a dory. We rode in a dory from Ram Island Light. But my dad was the lightkeeper because we went up to that house and worked all day on the house and left our boat right in that cove right down there. And all day long while we were working on the house, we heard sirens and saw army trucks going back and forth, loaded with soldiers. They were looking for us all day. And so finally we got our work done, and Father had to go back and light the light before dark. So we headed down the road, and the sheriff stopped us, said we couldn't go. They were looking for us all day. Father said, well, I've got to go. I'm Coast Guard, and I've got to light the light before dark. So he wouldn't go with the sheriff. He refused.
What made him think you were a Nazi spy?
Oh, there was an old man who lived there, right where we landed, and we spoke to him. We didn't have accents. I don't know why he put out the word that we were Nazi spies. And the funny thing about the whole situation was the dory that we were in was a United States Coast Guard dory, and over in the stern was a little bronze plaque that said U.S. Coast Guard and gave the number that they assigned to that dory, and nobody bothered to go down and look and see, really look the dory over.
Now Daddy and Brother Bruce, they are on the glassy sea, rowing around heaven just as happy as can be. What, you say a third one is sitting in their boat? Well, that's our Jesus who keeps us all afloat. I pray it won't be long till we're all over there, fellowshipping forevermore. I'll give all three a kiss and a big hug too. Then I'll pull on my heavenly oar. Now Jesus said he'd take us all to heaven too, if we forgive one another and love each other true. Oh, forget about our share of this world below. There's a tree of life awaiting. A tree of life is waiting, yes, a tree of life is waiting with fruit hanging low, fruit hanging low.
Okay. Okay.